What is going on, guys and gals? Brooklyn bound the Raid Scientist here, and today I'm going to go over some tips and tricks to help you finish those high scores in Pantheon and also get those sweet emblems. This isn't a full guide on the encounters, but highlights and tips on each one to help you succeed. Posting this video as of week 3 of Pantheon, so this is going to cover Golgoroth, Caretaker, planets, Atrax, Oryx, and Rhulk. Riven and Nezarec will be out next week. And to refresh your memory on Riven, I did put a refresher guide out how to do it quote-unquote legit, in case it's necessary next week to get a high score. Link in the description. Overall, I just wanted to organize the tips and things I've learned over these first 3 weeks in Pantheon to help you out, and also to prepare you for that final week at minus 20 power. So, let's jump right into it. First off, on Golgoroth. You can 2-phase or even 3-phase him here and still get the high score. It's relatively forgiving. To make things easier, I recommend having one of the gaze-taking players run Tractor Cannon, or even both of them, so they can debuff him constantly as they are rotating the gaze. However, if the gaze holders struggle with staying alive, things like Swords and Stronghold if you're on Titan are amazing. Healing Grenades for Solar subclasses help in a pinch as well. Once the other player has taken the gaze from you, focus briefly on the invisible Minotaurs to take them out. Help debuff the boss if possible, and then jump up to get ready to take it back again. For the players in the pit doing damage, remember that in Pantheon, 2 players get unstable on every pool of light. Make sure you communicate each set of unstable light, one person going left and one person going to the right so that they don't kill each other. And if you are unstable, don't just stand there and wait for it to explode. There are tons of adds that are going to kill you, so take out as many adds and thrall as you can while you're waiting. In higher difficulties, I highly recommend a few people focus on adds in the pit between bubble phases, unless you have a Well of Radiance and Healing Rift on pretty much every one, because the adds can stack up and start to cause major problems. Overall, Golgoroth isn't too bad for a high score. If you end up missing a gaze or something and need to do 3-phase, just be sure you clear adds quickly so you can get back to damage phase. The faster you clear the adds, the faster you can get to this damage phase and start back killing him off. Okay. Moving to Caretaker, a few tips here. At week 3 and even week 4 difficulties, damage on Caretaker is getting pretty tight, even with teams using heavy weapons that match the surges. A lot of teams are focused on killing him in 2 floors due to the bonus timer, and I'm here to tell you that you can kill him in 3 floors and still hit the bonus timer for the high score. However, to do this, your runners need to be quick and self-shoot their own symbols. If your runners are immediately swapping out who goes in the room for symbols when the next person comes out, and each runner is shooting all the symbols on the totem themselves, you can be able to finish the 2nd floor damage phase with about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to 3 minutes left on the timer, and just enough time to get a quick 3rd floor and final stand. Runners, I highly recommend an SMG or an auto rifle or something to help you shoot the symbols a little easier. Secondly, damage on Caretaker needs to be organized appropriately. Remember that after you take him past the highlighted portion on his health bar, you'll get 4 to 5 seconds to damage him before he goes immune and teleports up. So get as much damage as possible. You want to burn heavy and secondary on the first 2 plates, getting his health just above the threshold on his health bar, and then everyone runs to the last plate together and burns all the damage supers and heavy to push him far as past his health gate before he goes immune. If done correctly, you can get him to the final stand in 2 floors, but it's tight. So stack your class warfare or shot caller buffs, get a debuff on Caretaker, and you can do it. Note that if you're going for a 2-floor kill versus speed running the symbols and doing it on 3 floors, plan accordingly. It's kind of a double-edged sword because when you get to the 2nd floor, if your runners are lightning fast, many players probably are not going to have their supers back by the damage phase, so keep this in mind. If you're trying the 2-floor cook, you may want to slow down running on the 2nd floor so everyone has time to get their supers back. Keep up with adds, make sure you're watching the abated adherence from shooting the totem, and you should be able to take this out relatively easily. Moving on to planets. Honestly, this encounter seems to be giving a lot of teams issues, and it's due to the fact that there are so many enemies on constant respawn, a tight damage window, and the notorious fire tornado that always seems to spawn when you're picking up a dunking planet. A few tips here. First, when swapping planets, you have a lot more time than you think. When the Colossus die and you do your callouts, take a moment to clear out the newly spawned scions on the plates and clear some ads. Then check around for the fire tornado before running in and grabbing your planet. If you're swapping from the top 2 plates, make a longer route towards the spawn-in area where the rally flag is and then back to the other side instead of trying to cross the back area and getting murdered by all the ads. Remember that in Pantheon, there is this new fire tornado that spawns on the triangular platforms, so it's best to keep off of them entirely, using the outer ledges until you actually need to grab the planet. Even with solar resistances, this can hurt a lot at -15 or -20 power. Once all 4 planets are dunked, have the 2 ad clearing players use precision weapons to focus on the Tormentor. I recommend at this point assessing the number of ads in the arena though. The Tormentor will despawn when the damage phase starts, so it's actually more important in my opinion to take out all the ads and make sure they're dead first, and then finish off the Tormentor. However, in a few runs, we just had one person with Izanagi or a sniper rifle just murder him as soon as he spawns. If you don't have enough Well of Radiance to have one on each plate, which is pretty unlikely, the best strategy is to throw one down in the middle and then dip in and out of the plates to get your buffs and run back to the middle to do damage. When doing this, do a 3-2-1 countdown before you shoot him so you can cook his damage down further. Secondly, watch for the fire tornado after each plate when running to get the next buff. A lot of times teams are in the middle doing damage, and then they run to the next plate quickly, the boss shoots out the fire tornado, and you will die instantly. Instead, wait a second for it to go away, then run and grab the buff and come back. You'll likely need to 2-phase here to get a high score, as planet swapping and ad clearing takes a while. Finally, to speed things up, do not forget about the crux that's up in the air above the boss that can be shot after dunking planets to speed up the planet moving phase and allow you to get to DPS faster. Shoot it once all 4 players have dunked to speed up the animation and move to the next phase. If one pair of players messes up, you can shoot this also to get to the next swap started sooner, so you have more time. This is extremely handy if you're messing up swaps or tight on time for the high score, so do not forget. Alright, tips for Atrax. The big question on Atrax is how to get the high score, because a lot of teams seem to be missing this. First, note that if you're doing the week 1 Atrax Pantheon mode, and you've done a full fresh run, and not just an Atrax checkpoint, then you're going to get the high score pretty much automatically from finishing, because she's the final boss, thus giving you a bonus score from the completion of the entire activity. However, if you're doing week 2, 3, or 4 where Atrax isn't last, then you may need to pay more attention to your score. First, note that you can get a high score by killing Atrax in one floor, as long as you kill all the ads, all 6 servitors, and the Tormentor on the bottom before damage phase. To do this, send 3 people up and keep 3 people down, clear all of the ads, and then the 3 players that are down will kill their servitors, spawn the Tormentor, and kill him quickly. Use precision weapons like snipers to take him out, and then head up with the operator buff. If you have all 6 players, go up top and use Parasite or Grand Overture if it's Arc Surge, and 6 damage supers, you can kill her on the top floor with more than 5 minutes left to get over 500,000 points. The footage on screen is going to show this. To get 6 players up top, the operator will have to send down 2 pods, so keep this in mind. You should have plenty of time to do all of this before the damage phase starts. Getting the one floor is tough though, so it's a good idea to have the scanner player and maybe one other player ready to immediately run to the elevators and go down, switching to a sword while they're in the elevator, and going down scanning to find the correct one and finishing her off. It is possible to get a high score by doing the standard strategy as well, where you have 3 up and 3 down, or 4 up and 2 down, or whatever, by sending the scanner back and forth, but just keep an eye on your score. If you kill Atrax with more than 5 minutes left, you're going to get over 400,000 points from the bonus timer. But if you kill her closer to the timer reaching 0 with less than a minute left, you're only going to get around 300 points or so. Next up is Oryx, and honestly, I think he's probably the easiest encounter so far in Pantheon due to his extremely long DPS window where Whisper of the Worm, even if it isn't Solar Surge, just shines. It's a pretty easy 2-phase. Not a ton to say about this encounter, honestly. Big tips here are to run a high impact special weapon for the knights that spawn on both the plates and the Light Eater knights that now spawn continuously until the bombs are detonated for damage. Another tip is if you have a Titan, have one of them run Strand, since their DPS supers aren't really that useful here, and they can take care of the Tormentors and then counter with their super. The Tormentors spawn during damage, and you can pretty much ignore them while you're shooting Oryx, but after damage is over, the Titan can go then suspend him and either super them or take them out with precision weapons. If they are left up for final stand, they can suppress you out of the Aura of Invincibility and give you a little bit of trouble. And finally, Rhulk. Firstly, in doing week 3 of Pantheon, where Rhulk is the final boss, you can 3-phase him and still get the high score triumph as long as you're not just doing a Rhulk checkpoint. Similarly to Atrax on week 1, since he's the final encounter, you get bonus score from the entire activity when he dies, so you will be given the high score triumph. This also works if you say you load up like an Atrax checkpoint or something for week 3 and go from Atrax to Oryx to Rhulk and then finish it from there. You'll still probably have enough points doing a 3-phase. However, it does not work if you load in a Rhulk checkpoint by itself, because if you do it this way, you're going to have to 2-phase him before the timer runs out to get the high score triumph. I assume if he is back in the final week as well, and he isn't the final boss, you're going to need to 2-phase him as well. There are, quote, a few cheeses you can try for this encounter. Firstly, you can get Rhulk to dash off the map into the abyss and automatically die, giving you the clear. But it's pretty hard to do, and I haven't been able to do it successfully myself. Some friends who ran this had it happen accidentally where he dashed off the map. Secondly, you can get the new added baby Rhulk that just follows you around to ignore everyone else for the most part. Have one person get his attention and then run up towards the R2 pillar and the wall in the middle and kind of just stand there right against it, and he will just not do anything and look at you. Another tip is absolutely have a divinity person and a few people on sniper rifles to take out the Tormentors immediately when they spawn. To make best of use of your time, you'll need the double dunk strategy here, where you essentially split the leeching buff twice so that 2 people can get the emanating force and dunk both pillars together. This speeds up the encounter and helps you get the higher score. As mentioned earlier, if you're needing a 2-phase for a high score and it's Arc Surge, Thunderlord with Divinity, the class ability or shot caller buffs, and at least 4 or 5 damaging supers should be doable for most teams who've made it this far. However, if surges rotate, rockets and grenade launchers are also doable, but keep in mind there's a lot more moving around during the damage phase due to the additional Rhulk, so you need to be careful. 2-phasing here is all about min-maxing your damage output with supers, debuffing the boss, utilizing your surges on your boots and from the activity, and having a special weapon as well that can do burst damage and maybe even have an auto reload. Looking ahead, in the final week with Riven and Nezarec, remember that Riven was adjusted a while back to not take much damage from precision weapons like snipers and linears, so keep that in mind as you're testing loadouts from a high score Riven run. For Nezarec, I'd highly expect more Tormentors to show up here and for some additional mechanics to be added, making running more difficult and damage phase more chaotic. We've seen so far that Bungie has basically taken any point in these encounters in Pantheon where there could be some downtime or not much going on, and that's where they've chosen to add more. Hopefully, some of these tips I've covered here today will be helpful and get you through these Pantheon runs for those sweet emblems, extra adepts, and that Godslayer title. Thanks for watching, Guardians, and if you have any comments or builds to anything I may have left out, drop them in the comments and I can pin anything that I find useful.